Good afternoon. It's Sunday, June the 7th, and it has turned hot, about 90 degrees today. I made a video about 3 weeks ago, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a gardening update. If you saw the other video, you might be able to compare. This is the wicking bucket that I had not made as yet, and I made that one, and that is rhubarb. And this one was empty in the last video. That's 2 Brussels sprouts coming along pretty nicely. And that little guy right there, that is Lovage, which is a type of perennial celery for anyone who's interested in permaculture and you live in a climate that's probably not colder than a zone 3. You could probably grow that. Tastes just like celery. It's a little stronger than. And last time this was empty, I had not planted my chard in there yet. So within 3 weeks, I planted small transplants and we're ready to munch out on that. This chard I showed before, and it was just little. And you can see that even some of our ones that we grew late winter from seed are already trying to bloom. When the weather turns hot, some of the cool season crops want to go to bloom, but there's a lot of good food in that. And I had a huge flat leaf parsley. The rain beat it down and it rotted out in the middle. There's the stump right there that's left. And my kales, we've been harvesting that for the market for a while, a few weeks. 5 weeks, I believe it's been. And more kale. Looks pretty yummy if kale's your thing. My stevia is starting, let's see. My stevia is starting to bloom. With the lighting, it's difficult to get it to show well. But you can see little tiny blooms there, but it's coming along. The lemongrass has really done well. It likes the hot and humid weather. In the pineapple sage, you can actually see the red bloom. It's a little toward the scarlet side. And the hyssop has progressed very well within a 3-week period. And I'm still working on my seed project here with the kale. Those are just about ready to harvest. They get nice and swollen like that. You know the seed are becoming mature. And the oregano I showed last time was nice and green. It doesn't like the hot weather as much. And I put it over here in a sunny spot. And it's going to bloom also shortly. We need to harvest that back and let it come back from the bottom. You can see that it's sprouting down in the bucket. The kiwi I showed before is looking very good now. Check out the size of this leaf. I mean, that's as big as my hand. And the one under it's even bigger. Kiwi doesn't really like you to touch it. It has a very feathery, soft and fuzzy texture to it. You might be able to see that there. A lot of little hairs on there. And we still have plenty of geraniums. They're finally starting to show their color. Here's one that's just about to open up. And lots of pretty begonias back there. And there's a pot of Kong coleus. That's waist high almost. This is as tall as the table. And the table comes up to my pocket. And lots of pretty colors. There's a retirement community called Fairfield Glade here. And because they are part of Wyndham Resorts, got a few marigolds left, they're mostly been sold. because they're part of Wyndham Resorts, their policy about the viral epidemic has been such that we have been unable to attend the market that we started there many years ago. And a few things left there. It's a sunny time of the day, and we've kind of cleaned this up and moved things to a shadier spot since it's gone into the 90s. Less watering. But it's a pretty little display over here. There's a pretty impatient begonia and some stuff we've just started there, and I love that coleus. He's pretty. But we've missed 5 of our Wednesday markets, so we have a lot of coleus on hand that we might not normally have. And I promised last time we'd go out and take a look at the raised beds. This is all mint, lots of it. When I bought it originally, the greenhouse in a neighboring city that I bought it from, that smells good, told me it was the same mint that they used for the Kentucky Derby for like mint julep. And boy, is it prolific. And there is some lemon balm, which also has a nice smell. It's more lemony. And this bed over here, that's high mallow, which has a purple bloom in it. It's very cold tolerant. This bush here with all the yellow blooms, that bush is called rue, R-U-E, rue. And I've got peppers planted in this straw. This is one of the beds we use for our hot peppers. And I've got super chilies and cayennes in there. Got yucca going to be blooming here before long. You know, you could eat those cream colored blooms. They're sort of waxy, but you can eat them. They're edible. And into the raised bed area we go, because the weather's turned hot, and we started this early on. There's the swimming pool in the back for the grand youngin'. And all this spinach here is going to seed. We harvested off of that for several weeks, and we'll continue to harvest a little more on it. But that's been a very strong bed. That's some of the biggest, tallest spinach. We found this setup is pretty effective for more chard. Of course, all these plants that you're looking at have been harvested off once a week for several weeks now, since the beginning of May. But we still have, it continues to produce. Here's a whole bed of kale. And this is black-seeded Simpson lettuce. That bed is approximately 4 feet wide by 8 feet long. I think this one's a little bit longer. I think that I made that one 9 feet. And here's another bed over here, about the same. We have harvested gallons of lettuce off of these 2 beds for the last several weeks. And here's lovely kale. It has done outstanding for us this year. And hopefully it'll hold up to the heat. And there's some more lettuce. We had difficulty in the beginning getting our nasturtiums to come up. We had a couple come up before the hard freeze, and they got froze back. So we got just a little bit. Normally this is completely full. And some more chard over here. And the tall with the white blooms, that's cilantro. As soon as it turns warm, cilantro goes to bloom. We'll let those bloom and seed. And later in the season, when it gets cool, we'll have more cilantro come back in its place. The garlic is feeling the heat. But you can see, if you look closely, there's all kinds of garlic scapes in here. And we'll harvest these big time and take them to the market. Probably this week is our first Fairfield Glade market of the season, and they know what to do with them. And here's a garlic gonna bloom. Another bloom. The bees usually love those. They're not really opened up yet. So that bed is all garlic and cilantro. Cilantro, by the way, is a good natural way to remove toxicity of metals from your body. This is a mustard green. We had 2 or 3 plants that made it through the winter, and some of my radishes have begun blooming. We harvested what we were going to get and took them to the market, not Saturday, but the Saturday before. And there's plenty of weeds. You can see the mustard greens there, like the kale, have gone to seed. Let's see if I can get out of my light. And I'm not sure if I'll leave those or not. I have plenty of mustard green seeds. We're thinking about that giant bush in the back. That's catnip. And there's some more lettuce over there beside of it, like red oak leaf lettuce. We've been harvesting also out of the onions for a while. Here's more spinach that's going to seed and turning yellow because of the heat. The purple blooms in the back. It's almost finished blooming, but that's sage, regular garden sage. It has the best smell ever. That high mallow that I pointed out before that's down here on the ground. Oh, I see there's it's going to be blooming before long. Those are such pretty blooms. That has medicinal properties. Pain relieving, I think. Okay, we're going to exit the raised bed area. I want to walk out for myself as well as anyone who cares to see. This is one plot. We generally grow about 36 tomatoes in this little area. Primarily Roma and Celebrity. And it's relatively early in the season. We weren't able to put any of these plants out till the middle of May. My last video was on the 14th and they weren't out by then, and we've already got some tomatoes coming on. There's a nectarine tree, and I don't think that it's going to make anything. I think the freeze got the small fruits. And that's giant yellow Japanese iris. They get really tall, have pretty yellow blooms. Okay, out to the large garden in the front. Have about 100 tomato plants out here, several different varieties. We've got German Johnson here, and that's on that row. This is Brandywine, and you can see that we're getting some tomatoes on. If I can get those in the picture, there they are. Little diatomaceous earth on the plants. All the early girls that I planted in April that I thought were going to perish because of the freeze have come back, and they've even got tomatoes on them. And we grow lots of squash, many different varieties, whether it's a spaghetti squash, yellow squash, zucchini, several different kinds, white patty pan, yellow patty pan. And the squash plants are coming along. It's about the best the garden will look. Once the plants get so big, it'll be difficult to keep the weeds and everything under control. A couple of rows of cucumbers. I know a lot of people plant those in hills, but we kind of plant them in a straight line, and they end up vining over really 3 or 4 rows worth of the area over time. It's always fun to dig through the vines and find the cucumbers. Mostly that's straight 8. These peppers down this row are all jalapenos, and on the other side of the garden, of this garden anyway, we've got several different plots. Lots of sweet peppers, different varieties, whether they're bananas, bells, pimentos, and I believe in this stand there's one other variety. So that's kind of a view of it. I've got a rock pile there up here on the mountain. Whenever you till, you end up with rocks that come out of the ground, and so we just make a pile of them. And this blooming right here is yarrow, and actually yarrow is a medicinal value. You can take the leaves and crunch that up. If you like cut yourself on a briar, yarrow is good to staunch bleeding. So you can take that leaf and ball it up and put it on a cut to help the bleeding to stop. Okay, well, that's a garden update for Sunday, June the 7th, just to kind of see how things have progressed in just a little over 3 weeks since May 14th. I feel that we're blessed. Things look good, but with heat, thunderstorms, the pie pan is to help to scare the deer away, because we have quite a bit of deer down here on the river. A little wind blows and creates some sound to scare them off, and I use sulfur dust. Also, a trick I learned from an old farmer around here is to take bars of Irish Spring and whittle them up, just shavings, around to the smell. Put it around the perimeter of your garden, and the smell will deter the deer. So there we go. That's what that looks like. I didn't show you the back garden, which I've just prepared for late planting, and the broccoli is almost ready to start harvesting. The orange are daylilies, and there's some yellow buttercups there too. So there we have it. Thanks for taking a minute to check it out. I hope that your garden is growing well also.